There we go. Hey everybody, Debo here. I originally uploaded this video on YouTube, but unfortunately I had the Final Fantasy piano collection, I think from 9 or 10 playing, and it dinged it for copyright. So what I decided to do was just basically talk about this fight. There's really not much to it. I'm not going to go into details of what everybody has to do specifically. I just going to go into details of what you do as a tank. So I got myself right here in the little corner. We're going to go ahead and hit play, and I'm going to go ahead and enlarge it. On this fight, I am a off-tank for this battle. You can either be main tank or off-tank. Off-tank's job is to provoke a specific attack. It's called secondary head. And hopefully the video quality gets a little bit better here. Yeah, it does. My whole job right here, as you can see, there's 3 different positions that you could stand in. That's just really reference for us to know where we need to stand at. DPS and heals have to deal with that mechanic. Pretty straightforward things here. Dodge the massive AoE cones. Just maintain DPS. Me and the other tank are just staying up front here to make sure that well, I'm taking the cleaves and we're splitting the damage. It's a mechanic inside of the fight, basically. The only thing I need to worry about as an off tank is making sure I put up as much DPS as I can. You see I'm doing like 329, 330. I'm doing a sword of spec oath, or sword oath, and doing as much damage as I can. And the first big mechanic outside of dodging the obvious, you know, AoE cones and all that damage on the floor is he does his attack, or she does his attack, the secondary head. You'll see me provoke, get a little bit of threat. She hits the person she stun locked right before she cast it with the secondary head, and then she switches over with the primary head and then hits me. And the reason why we do that is because if you get hit with the stun, or basically if you get secondary head and then it follows up with the primary head, it instantly one-shots the tank. So you're gonna see me as the off tank just simply provoking right before that happens so that it doesn't one-shot the tank. So again, it's just very simple. First phase, dodge the AoE mechanics of the nerve gas. Just do the best amount of DPS I can, make sure I get my rotations in, and just make sure that every single time secondary head gets cast, I taunt it, I put out my DPS, or just get my little bit of threat, and then the other tank will immediately just taunt it back and get back threat. And as you can see, really simple for our job. There's a bunch of mechanics or things that are going on for the DPS, but like I said, I'm just talking about this from the tank perspective. And then you see us getting close to 59%. 59% will start the second phase, which will involve the add phase. So pretty much all I got to do, make sure that I don't touch that circle on the underneath her, because that will give you an invulnerability debuff. But see how we're switching over that. If you notice, I already switched to shield oath. I changed that little, instead of doing the scoring thing now, I actually end up doing flash, then score, and then flash again, and then I go into my rotation. And the only thing that mechanics about this is that you just have to have one group on the weapons node, one group on the cube. You have one node that won't be touched until we get the other cubes down. And the big thing about these cubes is that they need to be killed at the same amount of time. If they touch each other, it's an instant wipe. And this interesting cube, the weapons node, every so often does an AoE attack that needs to be soaked together. The DPS need to stack up. It's called repelling cannon. So when it opens itself up and does that red attack, you'll see it in a little bit right there. That's when you basically gotta soak the damage or take the damage. The tank doesn't have to worry about that, but the DPS need to be stacked up, and then you move. So basically, my repelling cannon movement is not perfect. After it does a vacuum wave, usually does repelling cannon, and then that's when you're supposed to move it. So moving it right there, I got lucky because it did repelling cannon while I was away. I can take the damage. It's not good for the healer, but the DPS didn't die. So like I said, you see the wave, or you see the wave, and then it does repelling cannon, or vacuum wave, and then it does repelling cannon. Every time after it does repelling cannon, you want to move it. You want to avoid the dark patches on the ground and all that other crazy stuff. And as you can see, the DPS are doing the job. Both they were communicating very well, both of them at the same time. This is the part I want to go back into sort of, and then I'm going to start doing DPS on the electric node. It's pretty simple for us tanks right here. So all we gotta do is just help do a DPS, and then we just need to get back in a position which will be behind her, or I think in front of her, before the next phase starts. So the only thing you could really do, because when she goes into the second phase, she casts this really big damaging magical attack. Doesn't really hurt us tanks that much, but it pretty much hurts the DPS, the heals and the DPS, so they gotta do their own little stuff to mitigate that damage. Like I said, if you need more info, there's a lot of other videos out there, but like I said, I'm just talking about it from the tank point of view. All other point of views are kind of meh. So we got behind her butt, and then she swipes around, then she's going to go ahead and do our next mechanic, and this is the mechanic as she does Nano Spore Jet, which needs to be split between those tanks. But we're in front, so it's not a big deal. It's just damage that the healers have to heal through. And now we got this thing called Tether on both of us. Now, since both of us are tethered together, the tanks usually are always tethered together. If we move in the opposite direction and too far from each other, we'll die. If we move with tether close to the other people who have tether, which are basically at the position right behind the tank, that's how you take the position. When the tanks get tethered, we'll die. So we can't touch anybody. The other group who's tethered, who's behind the boss, you can't see them. And we can't move into separate directions, because if we do, we'll die. So basically, what me and the tank, main tank, or vice versa, you always do is you just always move to the left, or you move to the closest way out of taking damage. So right here, we got everything in fruition here. Everything's going great. Like I said, it's only going to do the Nano Spore Jet, which is not a big deal. You know, you just heal through that. Nothing we can do specifically. You see, we just got tethered again, I do believe. And that's it. It's the same thing as first phase. Taunt when the secondary head comes up, because you can't let the person who's getting a secondary head to be hit with that and primary head. It's a wipe, or it will kill the other tank. So I don't know necessarily it's a wipe, but you don't want that to happen. So I mean, that's pretty much all we do. We're doing our damage. Oh, and also that cone AoE breath can basically, she can do it behind her, but she only cast it 3 times. But as you see, we're just moving to avoid everything, and then, you know, we start moving to the left. We're just moving together to avoid the damage. It's pretty easy. It's more to the fight than this. There's a lot more mechanics that are going on, as you see secondary head and I taunt, but I'm only talking about this from the tank perspective, and a lot of my videos in the future are going to be that way, because it's my belief that if you just focus on what you're doing and you make sure you nail what your job is, it makes the fight go much easier. And you got to let the DPS and the healers, you got to let them do their job. When you start worrying about what everybody else is doing, then you miss mechanics and you miss certain things. So pretty much we're doing pretty well right here. We got our mechanics down, the healers and the DPS on point. The mechanics, we got some good luck with the tethers. When you have tethers on the tank, I think it makes it a lot easier. We basically responded pretty well with that. So as you can see, we're just, you know, me and the tank are just doing our rotations and stuff. We're doing very well. I'm in sort of for the most of this fight, except for second phase when I put on the shield of. And as you can see, the DPS is pretty solid. It's not as good as what it should be, but it's enough to get through the fight. You know, that's 269, 270 for me. I think I end the fight at 275. The other paladin's fantastic, 233, so that adds extra DPS. That's pretty okay, but I heard people do higher now, so I got to try to improve upon that. But, you know, we did okay. Mechanics were good. DPS is pretty solid. For what it's worth in the Duty Finder, of course. This was done with Duty Finder with random people. So, eventually it took a couple runs when I finally got the right group. But, I mean, that's all to the fight. You don't have really much to worry about. The only difference is in the other phase, you might have to deal with Cube. The Cube, which is the other ad that was tanked when I said I tanked the spear in this one. That was the one I was basically tanking when it was doing the repelling cannons. The cube is pretty easy too. You just need to keep it away from the other ones and just keep moving it around. It just does basically it does a lot of crits, and it does a lot of cleaving damage, melee damage. So it's not that big of a deal if you're tanking either the cube or the spear. You just gotta make sure you keep them away from everybody. But the big thing with the spear is you have to wait for repelling cannon before you move it. Only move it after it casts repelling cannon. But that was pretty much it for the fight. I think I ended up getting like a bracelet here, or a necklace, or a choker, or something like that, which was pretty cool. But outside of that, everything went pretty well. So hope you guys like this video. I'll be doing more videos like this in the future, but like I said, I repeat, it's only going to be from the tank perspective, because it's my theory that a lot of people sometimes, I think, watch videos and stuff and they get really confused. And the big thing is that what I would always try to tell people is that you need to master what you need to do first before you worry about what's happening to everybody else. Now, if there's a mechanic that the DPS are doing that you have to watch out for, because it affects you, that's different. But if it's the DPS have to do something that I have no control over, then I don't need to worry about what they're doing. I just need to focus on what I'm doing specifically. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to be uploading all the final fights of COB Muhammad, then I might go back and do some other ones just for educational purposes. But hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm Debo, and I'll see you guys in the next video.